Welcome to episode number 31 of the Dugout Report. I am here with the NBC LA sports reporter Michael Duarte, recapping the Giants-Dodgers game uh, from Thursday from Thursday night and the weekend series between the Guardians and Phillies, Dodgers-Astros series, and how the Phillies and Yankees series will go early next week. And also at the end of the episode, we will squeeze in some trade deadline talk as well. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me back on. And yeah, you and I have been talking about Major League Baseball, Phillies, Dodgers for a while now. So I'm excited to chop it up with you again here. And I know your birthday's coming up next week. So happy early birthday. Hopefully the Phillies can give you a present because the Dodgers are creeping up on them, man.
Yeah. Uh, what what are your thoughts on the how the series went this past series against San Francisco?
So the series with San Francisco, the rival Giants, but not just that 4 game series, going back to the 3 game series the Dodgers had before that with the Boston Red Sox. And it just, there's been these ebbs and flows with the Dodgers all season long. It's been like a roller coaster ride, as I mentioned for you. And I honestly think it will continue all the way until October. But this is one of those flows now for the Dodgers, right? They went into the All-Star break losers of 6 of 7, including getting swept by the Phillies at a time where they really needed to win a couple of those games because they could have helped themselves as far as best record in the National League. And at this point, best record in all of baseball, to be honest with you. And they blew it, including losses to the Tigers that they should have never lost, including a 5-run lead going into the bottom of the 9th inning that you cannot lose that game. So with that said, they've now flipped the script. They've won 6 of 7, including sweeping the Red Sox, taking 3 of 4 from the Giants. You could have argued outside of the 8th inning in that third game on Wednesday night, they might have been able to be undefeated going after this. They could have swept the Giants there, except for that bad inning with Johan Ramirez on the mound, who was DFA'd on Thursday by the Dodgers. But it's good to see him bounce back. Nothing has changed. Well, a little bit's changed, but nothing had changed after the All-Star break, essentially. Like, they hadn't got Mookie Betts back. They hadn't got Max Muncy back. They hadn't gotten Tyler Glasnow back at that time. Things hadn't changed. The bullpen wasn't the same. But what I noticed, biggest change and difference, Alex, from heading into that All-Star break and before the break till now was the back of the lineup. Guys in the lineup for the Dodgers batting 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm talking guys like Kike Hernandez, guys like Chris Taylor, who just went on the IL, Jason Hayward, Austin Barnes, who now has an 11-game hitting streak as a backup catcher. Those guys in the back of the lineup, Gavin Lux, who won National League National League Player of the Week this last week post All-Star break. He's been hitting the cover off the ball. So what's nice to see for the Dodgers is the back end of the lineup that has been so frustrating for them throughout the season, finally starting to hit a little bit. I don't know if the rest helped them out, if they were able to reset their minds, go on vacation. Obviously, these guys were hitting below 200, so none of them had to worry about being on the All-Star team. So they finally come back. They're looking a little bit more relieved, more relaxed, and it's showing at the plate. The bullpen is pitching phenomenal, but there's still holes in that department. But now the Dodgers are starting to get healthy right at the right time, right? So Tyler Glasnow comes off the injured list. He started Wednesday. He pitched pretty good, but it was the bullpen that let him down in that game, and the Dodgers not being able to hit Robbie Ray for 5 innings. And then you have Clayton Kershaw returning on Thursday. He doesn't get the win, but he throws 4 innings. He looked okay. He only gave up 2 runs. If he can come back and look like Clayton Kershaw, even of like early to mid last season, that's a huge boost for the Dodgers. At some point, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is going to come back. Mookie Betts started swinging a bat today. He's been fielding grounders. He's going to be set to return in August. Max Muncy is supposed to be able to come back in August. I just saw him a couple days ago in the locker room. And then we got other bullpen relief and reinforcements coming on the way as well. Brusdar Graterol threw another inning of relief at AAA Oklahoma City on his rehab assignment. Michael Grove is also in AAA on a rehab assignment. Ryan Brazier is set to kind of go on a rehab assignment soon. So suddenly Joe Kelly came back off the IL and is looking pretty good. So suddenly you have reinforcements coming. You have the Dodgers getting healthy. If they can get fully healthy right at the right time, get some guys, and we'll talk about this at the end of the show, add some pieces at the trade deadline, whether it's big major pieces that can really swing the pendulum, or even just stopgap things that can fill the holes they have right now before these guys get back, then I think the Dodgers are going to be right there neck and neck with the Phillies the rest of the second half.
But going back to the game from yesterday, I saw that Conforto and Soler made things interesting in the eighth inning. What came to your mind during that time of the game, and did you think that the Dodgers had the chance to pull it out?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, what I was thinking and was what I was frustrated about even prior to that eighth inning, Alex, was the fact that the Dodgers, I believe in the sixth inning, had the bases loaded with one out in a 4-2 game. And I'm thinking with these two teams, rivals, they've played each other pretty close this series. They always play each other really close historically. Nobody knows each other better than the Dodgers and the Giants outside of the Red Sox and the Yankees. And so you have bases loaded, one out, Andy Pages up. I know he's a rookie, but in that situation, you got to do whatever you can do to get an insurance run in. You know, you got a 2-run lead, but it's not a comfortable lead. You know what I mean? And I felt he grounds into a double play, ends up ending that inning. And to me, that was like okay, the Giants are going to come back and tie this game or take the lead. I just know it because there was an opportunity to put some more space between you, make yourself more comfortable with the lead that you had, and you blew it. And sure enough, in the eighth inning with Alex Vesia on the mound, like you said, Conforto and Soler knock in 2 runs and tie the game. And Alex Vesia is a guy that's pitched absolutely lights out for the Dodgers this season. You and him have the same name, so you should be happy for him as well. And he's even come in big in some save situations. But historically, Alex Vesia is a guy that's been kind of hit and miss, not usually considered a really high leverage guy. This is the one year the Dodgers have really been using him. And to his credit, he has earned it. He has pitched that way. But I don't know. There's a saying in baseball that you are what the stats show on the back of your baseball card. It's kind of a funny way of saying that inevitably you will kind of come back to the mean, right? Like, and they say that in basketball as well. It's kind of other sports. You know, a team goes and hits 14 threes in the first half and shoots 80% from the field. But if they average like 40% from the field, in the second half, it will probably average out. You know what I mean? You always kind of come back to where you are. And so I just have this feeling in my gut that Alex Vesia at some point would come back to kind of what he's been on the back of his baseball card his whole career. Maybe we're seeing that now. His last few outings, he struggled a little bit. He obviously blows the hold opportunity in the top of the eighth with Conforto and Soler. And so I'm glad that he was able to get out of that inning and limit the damage to just 2 runs. And yeah, I was thinking, oh man, the Dodgers are using their highest relievers, their highest leverage relievers right now in this game because they didn't use them on Wednesday because they were all tired. They'd pitched 3-4 days in a row. So they went to their bad relievers. I hate to phrase it like that, but they went to their bad relievers on Wednesday night and it cost them and Johan Ramirez. They went to their good high leverage relievers today and they didn't even like run them out in their traditional roles. They just ran them out based on the matchups. Joe Kelly in the 5th, Daniel Hudson in the 6th, Evan Phillips in the 7th, Vesia in the 8th, Antrinen, Honeywell in the 9th. It's just crazy to me, Alex, because there's really no closer right now. Any of these guys I just named, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, could be the Dodgers closer. And they just are rolling them out in whatever inning they think is the best inning to get them through it. And it worked today. But yeah, Vesia blows that. Treinen comes in and saves the bacon, gets them out of the inning. And then obviously it became the Nick Ahmed revenge game, right? The Giants just 2 weeks ago DFA'd this guy, released him. The Dodgers pick him up off the couch where he was hanging out in Arizona with his wife because they need some infield help now, especially with Miguel Rojas going on the injured list. Mookie Betts already on the injured list. All your shortstops are basically gone. So you need a good shortstop defensively. They go get Nick Ahmed. And how better to ingratiate yourself to your new fans, the Dodgers fans, by hitting a home run against the team that cut you 2 weeks ago in just your second game with the Dodgers. That was a bigger home run, in my opinion, than the beautiful, majestic shot down the right field foul pole that Shohei Ohtani followed with for the Dodgers to go back to back. But yeah, I was thinking that they're using all their relievers. If this game goes to extra innings, they're going to be in big trouble.
Mhm.
And thank God that Nick Ahmed was ready to get revenge on his former team. Otherwise, it could have been a very long afternoon for the Dodgers.
So um, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Dodgers Astros series,
Yeah.
as well as the Phillies Guardians. I know that it's a crucial series for the Phillies to get going, uh, since they've been on a I forget, I don't know how to put it in words, but just been like not at their strength best playing. But just wanted your thoughts.
So which one you want me to go first with? Phillies, Guardians, or Dodgers, Astros?
Either one.
All right, let's
Yeah.
start with I mean, we can start with Dodgers, Astros because we were talking about them. So, this is going to be a very emotional series for the Dodgers. Obviously, there's bad blood with the Houston Astros. Everyone remembers the 2017 banging of the trash can, cheating scandal. It was going on during the 2017 World Series. I was there live. They weren't doing the trash cans anymore, banging, because it was too loud at Minute Maid Field in Houston. So instead, they had like a train whistle, and they were basically tipping pitches to the batters, letting them know what pitch was coming by this whistle. We could hear it all 3 games in Houston during that series. It specifically was very loud and prevalent during Clayton Kershaw's start. I know Alex Wood, who took a no-hitter into the 6th inning in Game 5 of that series, or Game 4 of that series, excuse me, changed his pitch calls and stuff because they players knew that something was going on. They knew that the Astros were cheating, and it was evident in Yu Darvish's start in Game 3 and Kershaw's start in Game 5. But anyways, we know this story. We digress. But the point is, there's bad blood. There's still a lot of guys on this Dodgers team, even though it was 7 years ago, that were on that 2017 World Series team that can't forget it, that remember it, that hate these guys. And there is also members like Mookie Betts, who was on the Boston Red Sox when they were also beating him in the playoffs that same year, that didn't forget that these guys were cheating. So there's a lot of guys like that. Joe Kelly, who wasn't on the Dodgers, had a famous exchange with Carlos Correa when he was still on the Astros. So there's a lot of bad blood here. You're ending into hostile territory in Houston where, they want to say everything is fine. But I don't know. I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be a toxic environment for the Dodgers to walk into. And I think you're also colliding with a team. We talk about this on your show all the time. An unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The Astros are hot right now. They've come back past the Mariners for first place in the AL West. The Rangers are also coming on strong now. The Mariners are kind of keeping their head above water, and we'll talk about this later. They just traded for Randy Arozarena, a guy I can tell you the Dodgers have been wanting since the winter. So that's going to have them pivot to try to see where they're going to go as far as offensive help, or if they go with an outfielder. But as you know, Alex, every time I do this show with you, I like to look at the pitching matchups. And I like Friday's matchup in Houston between Gavin Stone, who's been pitching great for the Dodgers, a potential NL Rookie of the Year like candidate, maybe top 5, going up against a really veteran pitcher who has postseason experience in Framber Valdez. That is a very tough matchup for both teams, I think. I kind of give the nod to Houston there. I know the Dodgers have bad memories in that ballpark, so I kind of want to see how they respond. But then in the second game, the Dodgers are essentially throwing what could be a bullpen game. They'll probably go with another rookie in Justin Robolewski starting in that game. Like again, they're piecing this together after having Glasnow and Kershaw and some of these better veteran starters throw at the end of this Giant series. And you're going up against Ronel Blanco, who has had an amazing year, potentially AL Cy Young Award candidate up until Thursday, and Dylan Cease with the Padres, the only one who had thrown a no-hitter this year. I again give the nod to the Astros in game 2 of that series. So I could see the Dodgers potentially losing the first 2 games of this series. And then you go into Sunday's game between these two teams. I think the Dodgers again are probably going to end up throwing a bullpen game. I don't know what they're going to do. They just don't have the starting pitching right now. And I think Spencer Arrighetti is pitching for the Astros. He's got around a 6 ERA. He struggled this year. I think the Dodgers could do well against him, but I don't know who they're pitching. So I think the Dodgers on this next road trip are going to be running into some very good teams, some very hot teams. The pitching is not lining up in their favor. I don't think they're going to be carrying on winning 6 of 7 like they were at home here to start the second half. I just don't see it with them, and I don't see it with the pitching matchups. But I think when Glasnow comes back, when he throws next again, and that's probably going to come not in this Houston series, as I mentioned, but probably following that when they come back and head to San Diego, that's when you'll probably see some of these good pitchers. And those are games, honestly, that the Dodgers need to win more than they need to beat the Astros. It's emotional, it's personal with the Astros, but the Padres are chasing you in the standings in the division right now. They've been pitching well. They're coming off the momentum of a no-hitter. That's a series you need to win in San Diego and try to stop that momentum and put more space between you and them as far as first place in the division. So that's a more important series, and I think they're going to line up their pitching so that you're going to see Glasnow and Kershaw and those guys pitch in that Padres series. So I think they have a chance to lose this series in Houston just based on the pitching matchups alone. And now let's switch over to the Guardians Phillies, because I know you have a vested interest in that, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's a counter and clash of 2 first place teams going head to head, especially lining up when the trade deadline's getting close, coming up on Tuesday. This weekend could be auditions for some guys. Both teams could be looking at seeing what they need to add and what could happen. And both teams could look different through this series. Already teams are making trades. We saw Seattle make a trade. We saw the Marlins make a trade earlier today. So teams are making trades. The hot stove is heating up now. And both of these teams are going to be buyers at the deadline. That much we know. We still don't know all the teams are going to be sellers coming up this weekend. So I could definitely see both of these teams adding pieces in the trade deadline and the trade market entering this weekend. But I'm pretty sure you would have to tell me, but I'm pretty sure that Wheeler and Nola, having just pitched in this last series, are not going to be pitching against the Guardians in that series, which obviously doesn't bode well for them. But, I think Christopher Sanchez is starting on Friday. Ranger Suarez is going to take the mound in this series with the Guardians at some point, probably on Sunday. So I think, and Tyler Phillips, the guy who's been pitching pretty well for you guys, I think he's going to be starting too. So I think I like, and the biggest thing for me is the Phillies are at home, Alex, and that environment is that's a great home field advantage at Citizens Bank Park. And it's a great home field advantage, especially in the playoffs. It gets loud, it gets exciting, and I think you Phillies fans are going to really rally with the first place Guardians coming into town and ready, because right behind them come the New York Yankees, which is the series that probably everyone's had circled on their calendar since the schedule came out in winter this year. And so then you're going to get to see Aaron Nola, then you're going to get to see Wheeler pitch. I'm really excited more for the Yankees series with the Phillies than I am the Guardians versus the Phillies. But I can tell you, just looking at the pitching matchups and how both teams line up going into the weekend, I like the Phillies to win the series against the Guardians, probably taking 2 of 3. And I also like them at home against the Yankees with their 2 best pitchers going. So I think the Phillies win both series. And I think at the end of the trade deadline, when the Dodgers are coming home and the Phillies head out on the road, I think the Phillies are going to have a pretty good lead in the National League with best record by the time that happens.
I'm I'm really interested to see how Stephen Kwan performs against these uh against the starters of the Phillies. And I feel like even with Jose Ramirez, uh, neither I forget what spot in the lineup he's in, but he's been very productive for the Guardians lately. Um, I think those three are the main ones that I'm really interested to see how they perform, and I feel like it's going to be a very crucial time for Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber to have the at bats that they haven't had lately the past two series, because once they heat up, it's a whole new ball game, and they're going to be very very special once everything falls into place.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a good series, but also they're playing another AL Central opponent. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
just got done finishing with the Twins, who I believe, took two of three from them in that series. And so who knows? And then after that, you have to play the first place team in the AL Central in the Guardians. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out of it, because, and then you're going to go up against the Yankees. So it'll be tough, but I think coming back home instead of having to play at Pittsburgh and Minnesota where they dropped those series, I think the home field advantage is going to fuel guys like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber who love that home field advantage. It's going to fuel guys like Trey Turner, and so I think they're going to win both of these series against the Guardians and Yankees at home.
How how are you feeling about the Brennan Marsh drop or the in the week against the Twins?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a brutal play, but it's baseball. It happens,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But yeah, that's a brutal thing. And I was also looking, I mean, look, the Rockies are arguably the absolute worst team in baseball this year, and they beat the Red Sox in a football score 20-7 on Wednesday night.
Hmm.
And then a game that got out of control and got crazy there at the end. Like, that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, this is baseball. This happens. Crazy things happen. So that Marsh play, that Marsh drop, just another example of that. But I don't think it'll get to anybody. These players, I talk to them, they go home, they go, the game ends, they shower, they go home, they play with their kids, their families, and they completely forget about what happened the next day. So I don't expect any of that to carry over against the Phillies.
I and lastly, I know the trade deadline dates are heating up with the Avoice Arena news that broke out like I think 45 minutes ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I just wanted your thoughts on how you think the Dodgers and Phillies are going to go into this crucial time with getting what they need to be successful in the stretch.
Yeah. So finally, after weeks and weeks of nothing, no action, some trades are starting to happen. The Arizona Diamondbacks desperately needing a reliever, go out and get AJ Puck from the Marlins. Randy Arozarena, a big name, a former All-Star, a big fish that the Dodgers wanted. Even the Phillies would have probably wanted to have, though I know they weren't linked to him highly. He goes to the Seattle Mariners, who are definitely trying to tread water right now and not get caught by, or passed now by the Astros, or caught by the Rangers in the AL West. And so those are big deal. Now, when it comes to the Dodgers, I don't know the Phillies trade situation. I don't have the sources there. I can give you some names that I've heard from my sources that the Phillies are definitely interested in, that I think they could get. When it comes to the Phillies, a guy like Brent Rooker, left fielder in Oakland, I think is definitely a guy the Phillies can grab. In fact, I would not be surprised if that happens. I know they've called in, and we'll talk about this when I get to the Dodgers part, in on starting pitcher Garrett Crochet with the White Sox. There's some interesting caveats in that deal that he's asking. I know they're also in on starting pitching. The Phillies are. Jack Flaherty is a guy that I think will be available by the Tigers, former guy who played for the St. Louis Cardinals. Another guy, I think honestly, Alex, the Dodgers and Phillies are going to be in on some of the same guys all the way up until Tuesday and have been talking to these teams about these guys. And so it's going to be really interesting to see where they fall. Do they go other teams? Like I said, Arozarena is a guy that the Dodgers have desperately been interested in and wanting since winter. The Phillies made calls on him too. I don't know how close they were to actually pulling the trigger on it, but they were definitely interested. And now he goes to Seattle. So we don't know, and we don't know how as the dominoes start to fall, if it creates any urgency or priority or fear in teams like the Phillies and Dodgers to up their offers to these teams to get guys. There's a couple things I can tell you, though, when it comes to the way Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers front office operate at these trade deadlines, right? They're all about value, and they're all about making their team better. This is a situation where they spent close to $1.5 billion in the offseason on everybody, over $1 billion on Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto alone. So the expectations are super high. When you spend that kind of money, it is almost a World Series or bust mentality with the Dodgers. And when you have now played over half the season, you have a great sample size to decide what this team is, what they need to get over the hump, what they need to win a World Series. And this Dodgers team has been so inconsistent this year that there's a lot that they need. Now, here's a couple problems with all of it. First and foremost, the Dodgers have been so unhealthy, so many guys injured, so many injuries to the starting pitching. We're talking about entering the second half of the season in that 3-game sweep they had over the Boston Red Sox. Only one pitcher on the opening day rotation was not injured and still pitching, and that was Gavin Stone, a rookie. Everyone else no longer in the rotation on the IL. They are piecemealing this staff together as they go with glue and duct tape and putty and spit and whatever they can to hold on so that the well doesn't break. And thankfully, guys are stepping up and they're still ahead in the NL West, and they're now starting to get healthy and they can feel these things. So the Dodgers really need to look at who's coming back, who's getting healthy, can we rely on them, or do we need to get depth behind them, or do we need to go out and get a starter? So that's a question they have. And the reason why I say that is the Dodgers could use a relief pitcher. I think they're going to go get a relief pitcher at the trade deadline. But when you have Blake Trinan, Joe Kelly, Daniel Hudson, Evan Phillips, I just named, Alex Vesia pitching well, and you have Ryan Brazier and Brusdar Graterol coming back, do you need to go get a Mason Miller? Or do you need like a guy that can get you through the rest of the season, and you're going to run those guys I just named in the late innings, in the high leverage innings of the playoffs, whether it's a closer or not? Are you going to go get a Ryan Presley? But I don't think the Astros will trade him now. But we got to find out who's going to be sellers, and I'll get to that part next, right? Because like it depends on who's available also. So that's a big part of it. I could see the Dodgers, instead of going out and getting a Kenley Jansen, who might not be available anymore because the Red Sox are still in that second wild card, or the second and third wild card race. I could see them getting Yimi Garcia, a guy that knows the system, has played for the Dodgers a long time. He's had some decent success with the Blue Jays. They're definitely going to be sellers. Another guy that they had recently in their rotation that could become available is Shelby Miller on the Detroit Tigers. They had him on their team last year. They kind of gave him that bounce back resurrection Dodgers touch to rebound his career. He's a guy that could come back. Again, he knows the staff. He knows everything. He's comfortable here. I could see them going and adding a guy like that to get them through the next couple months while these reinforcements are on the way, and you're going to have some really good guys in the bullpen at the end, rather than trying to go get a Mason Miller, a Ryan Presley, a Aroldis Chapman, a Kirby Yates, who probably might not even be available. You know, Tyler Rogers, another guy that hasn't allowed a run in 2 months for the Giants. They just saw him a lot in this last series. The Giants now losing to the Dodgers, falling further back in the NL wildcard race. They might become sellers. that's a guy, but are the Giants going to trade him within the division? No. And so maybe you pivot and you just get some arms that can help get you through the next couple months, and you rely on the high leverage relievers you have, and you put your highest prospects somewhere else in a trade. So the Dodgers really need to figure that stuff out. Like, is Max Muncy going to come back and play third base, or do we need to go get a third baseman? When Max Muncy went down, they've been filling third base with Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, and Kayvon Biggio. That's like that's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, Alex, right? You're not going to fully heal that position right there. That hole that Max Muncy has left at the hot corner is you can't fill it with these guys. Max Muncy's a 30 home run guy a year, and these guys are not cutting it. So do you wait for him and you just go with these stopgap options and hope that he's fully healed when he comes back and you don't need to make a trade, or do you make a trade? And now the biggest thing, the two last biggest things, but the biggest thing for the Dodgers is when Mookie Betts comes back and he's fully healthy and that right hand has healed, or left hand, excuse me, has healed, and he's ready to go. Is he your everyday starting shortstop? He was your everyday starting shortstop for most of the season, but he defensively has been a bit of a liability. He's struggled. He's made errors. He's hurt your team. He's cost you runs. Because he has missed will end up missing over 2 months. His learning curve to learn the position, arguably the hardest position to learn in all of baseball defensively. Do you not trust it with 6 weeks left in the season or something before the playoffs, before it really counts, to put Mookie Betts at shortstop with the game on the line? With that said, do you move him to second base with Gavin Lux now heating up and hitting over 300 the last week or so? Or do you decide we're going to move Mookie back to right field and platoon him with Jason Hayward and move Mookie to short and second and kind of make Mookie a utility player? These are the questions the Dodgers have to ask themselves. And the reason why is because, well, if you can go out and get a guy like Luis Robert, that's a guy, by the way, that will probably be available, probably be dealt. The Dodgers are very interested in him. The Phillies are very interested in him. But if you add him to the outfield at Dodger Stadium, then that means you're keeping Mookie Betts in the infield, because Luis Robert needs to play every day. And so that means Mookie's going to be your shortstop, learning a new position on the go, the hardest position in baseball, going into October and going into the postseason. And that can be a little scary for teams. Randy Arozarena was another guy I talked about. That would be a guy the Dodgers would love to have, but that's an outfielder, and that means Mookie Betts. So let's say you don't get Luis Robert. Let's say you say, hey, I don't want Luis Robert. I want Bo Bichette. Okay? Bo Bichette, you take over shortstop every day. Platoon it with Miguel Rojas. We're putting Mookie back in the outfield. Now we don't need to trade for an outfielder because we got Mookie back in right field as an everyday outfielder. Suddenly that changes the dynamic. So the Dodgers really need to figure out if Mookie Betts is going to be the everyday shortstop going into the postseason, if they can rely on his defense and this experiment with him learning a new position, the toughest position in the game right now at this point, because it hasn't been smooth sailing so far for Mookie at that position defensively. He's struggled a lot to learn it. And I just wonder if the Dodgers will pull the plug on the experiment. And if so, that changes what they need at the deadline. Now, finally, I do think they're going to add a starting pitcher. And again, from what I've heard from sources, the asking price for the best starting pitchers right now in baseball is very high. We're talking about Garrett Crochet on the White Sox. I know the Dodgers, Yankees, Phillies, Braves, Orioles are all interested on him. They're all calling the price is really high. And Garrett Crochet has said if he's going to pitch in the postseason as a starting pitcher, he wants a contract extension. That's now going to change the dynamic of this team of people who thought maybe they'd be getting a guy for a postseason push in the last couple months of the season, if they're going to really back up the truck and pay this guy and give him an extension to have him pitch for them in the postseason. Another guy at the top of the pitching wish list is the all-star Tarek Skubal from Detroit. I know the Dodgers are interested in him. Also the Orioles, Yankees, Phillies. Also the Padres are interested in Skubal. But do the Tigers trade him, Alex, right? They're probably not going to make the postseason this year, but they've had great improvement. They're right there. They're making progress. They're getting better every year. They could take that next step and be a playoff team next year. But do you blow up and trade guys now, especially a young guy like Skubal, who's kind of at the peak of his powers? That's a great question. I don't know if the Tigers want to trade him. And so suddenly, if you don't want to blow up the farm system, if you're the Dodgers, to go get a handful of guys like Crochet or Skubal, like I said, now you're looking at the Jack Flaherty's of the world, right? The Yusei Kikuchis of the world. Is Blake Snell going to be available for the Giants? That's a guy the Dodgers offered a contract to in the offseason. Maybe they'll come back with him. Nathan Eovaldi was a name. He started his career with the Dodgers. He was a name I heard the Dodgers were interested in and making calls about. But now the Rangers are making a push to get into the playoffs again, and they're not too far out of the AL West. So that's going to be the big thing with all the teams right now in the deadline is, are the price tags too high to really trade a lot of prospects for these guys? And if so, do you pivot to mid-level guys instead of superstar talent? And the second thing is, and this is what's changed with the expanded postseason, how many teams are going to be sellers, right? Not that many. And how many teams are buyers? Because right now, if we just pull up the standings, by my count, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams buyers in the American League and only 4 teams sellers. And in the National League, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams within a game and a half of the playoffs. 10, 11, 12 if you include the Reds, Giants, and Cubs. And the Cubs have already said they're probably going to be sellers. So again, that's 11, 12 teams that are in the playoff hunt. And that only leaves the Nationals, the Rockies, and the Marlins as sellers. And maybe the Cubs sell, and maybe the Giants sell. We don't know. And they're not going to make a decision on this probably until the end of the weekend. Because if the Reds sweep or the Giants sweep and they're all of a sudden 1.5 or 2 out of a playoff game, they're not going to want to blow it up, in 2 days. So these teams need to be figured out who's going to buy, who's going to sell, and they need to figure it out this weekend. And then the second thing is going to be with very few sellers and the top end of the talent pool that we just mentioned, like Skubal and Luis Robert and Jazz Chisholm's another guy, Jack Flaherty, Garrett Crochet, Eddie Feedy, Eric Feedy, excuse me, these guys being the high end of the talent that we know is available, every team's going to want them, and that just shoots the price tag up for these guys. And so you wonder if it suddenly becomes not worth it and these teams pivot to some other guys. Tyler Anderson on the Angels, a guy that the Dodgers use as a reclamation project. He's a guy I think will be available. Maybe the Dodgers just decide to go with him, get another inning eater, just like James Paxton was, who they just DFA'd, right? Like, give us 10 starts, eat a bunch of innings, go into the 5th, 6th inning of games, and give more time for Yamamoto, Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Tyler Glasnow to get ready for the postseason, because those are the guys we want in a 7-game series. Those 4 I named, and we still have Gavin Stone, who we could move to the bullpen or something like that if we need to. And then we reinforce ourselves by that instead of having to trade 4 or 5 prospects, for a Garrett Crochet or a Tarek Skubal, for example. So that's going to be some questions that need. Now, I know the Dodgers fans, just like I'm sure Phillies fans, they want everybody, right? They want a Rosarena, they want Luis Robert, they want Crochet, they want Skubal, they want everyone. And I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think they need to resign themselves to the fact that teams are going to start to get desperate. The price tags are going to be very high. And sometimes the smart thing to do for teams like the Phillies and Dodgers that are not only good right now, have been good for the last few years, and are going to be good for the next few years, is to not blow up the farm system for, a really good player now or a flyer. Bolster yourself with some mid-level guys that aren't going to cost you a lot of high prospects, and try to piece it together through getting healthy and different things like that.
While you were talking, I was just thinking to myself, uh, I wanted to ask you like what your realistic prediction of what the Phillies could be doing in the next 72 hours.
Yeah, and it's really funny because exactly what I just said to you, Alex, is that the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Orioles, the Braves, and even the Padres, those five teams, they're all looking at kind of the same. They're all looking for starting pitching and they're looking for a bat.
Mhm.
And there's only, like we said, 6 or 7 teams that we know are selling. So the talent pool is very thin, and there's a lot of sharks circling who want to,
Yeah.
eat the same talent. And those teams, I've already heard from sources, the asking price is super high. It's very, very high. And the Dodgers, I know specifically, don't like blowing up the farm system to get a guy at the trade deadline because they think we can just buy him as a free agent in the offseason, or we can trade in the offseason when the price is lower. So these are questions that I know the Dodgers are going to be asking themselves. I know Rob Thompson's going to be asking himself these same exact questions with the Phillies, obviously. I don't know. It's tough. I would say, Alex, looking specifically at the Phillies alone, that Dave Dombrowski in his history is more of a guy, especially like what he's done with the Red Sox and stuff. He's more of a guy that's willing to go all in and trade for some big names at the deadline and blow up the farm system and leave a team, gutted in their wake than Andrew Friedman is. So with that said, I think the Phillies are going to be in on they're going to be in on Luis Robert. They're going to be in on Garrett Crochet. I think they're going to be in on Jack Flaherty, though I don't think they're going to get him. I think they're going to be in even on Tarek Skubal. And I could see Dombrowski pulling the move more than I could see Andrew Friedman if it's, a lot of high prospects. I do think they end up with a guy like Brent Rooker, though, and I think you might see that in the next 72 hours. But I think they know they need another starting pitcher. And so it'll be interesting to see if it's one of the big names we just mentioned, or if they decide it's not time to pull the trigger on those and something else. But something tells me Dave Dombrowski is going to go big because that's what he does.
Yeah, like just thinking about it, I I think they are really in need of a reliever to close out games because I know Jose Alvarado, Jeff Hoffman are uh, the ones that close the games out, but I'm just really I'm not really that confident in like how they've been doing lately, and they're just giving up runs day by day, and I just feel like the Phillies could definitely make a move for a better uh
Relief
just a
pitcher.
yeah with a pitcher, yeah.
They definitely need it, but it just doesn't seem like it's been their philosophy
Hmm.
to go get a guy like that. Like when they went to the World Series 2 years ago and lost to the Astros, that was their biggest flaw was their bullpen, but suddenly their bullpen was pitching well and great in the playoffs.
Hmm.
Then they go out and they added what's his name who used to play for the Dodgers the year before. I can't think of his name. He's on the Orioles now, the closer, the big time closer.
Um, Craig Kimball.
Craig Kimbrell. They go add Craig Kimbrell, a closer, a guy with thing, and he did okay for the Phillies, right? But like
Hmm.
I would say, they would probably say it didn't really work out the way they had hoped or the way they had wanted. So to trade prospects for relievers now at a point just doesn't strike me necessarily as Dave Dombrowski's style or his style for the last like 2 years with this team. Um, they definitely could use it. It's just going to be again, it's a premium, and who's going to be available? Paco already went with the Marlins. Tanner Scott might be available. Mason Miller might be available. Maybe Aroldis Chapman's available, but the Pirates are in it, so I don't see them making that kind of a trade. Maybe Tyler Rogers, Michael Kopech on the White Sox could be a guy. the Mets, everybody thought might trade some relievers, but now the Mets are crushing it and they're right behind the Braves in the NL East. So I don't think they're going to be sellers either. So I think it's really going to be like teams trying to poach on the A's, the Angels, the Blue Jays. I don't think anyone even wants the Rockies' talents. Maybe the Cubs. I don't know. So it's really going to just depend on who they are. So I don't know. And the other thing is, if you're the Phillies and you go get a starter, then you can now move. You can now move a guy like Christopher Sanchez maybe to the bullpen in the playoffs, right? Um, who's the other
Speaking of
guy?
that,
Yeah, go
speaking of
ahead.
that, I was before we hopped on to do this podcast, I was listening to 94 WIP, uh, the Philadelphia sports station, and a caller called in saying that uh, I I think it was the host that said it, but either way, they said that they would want to move Ranger Suarez to the bullpen once the playoffs started and have a reliable starter uh, coming coming in from the trade deadline.
Exactly. So you're hitting
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. If you go get a Scoble or you go get a Garrett Crochet and you have a 1, 2, 3 punch of Wheeler, Nola, and either Scoble or Crochet, yeah, you can move. You would then have the luxury of moving Ranger Suarez to the bullpen for the playoffs, only needing him in like a game 4 of a 7-game series situation. Tawan Walker, I'm assuming at some point supposed to come back, right?
I haven't heard anything about it.
But that's a guy that can go in
Yeah,
the bullpen. Sanchez can go in the bullpen. Suarez can go in the bullpen, like I mentioned. And this other guy that's starting for you guys. I
Tyler
just
Tyler
yeah,
Phillips.
Tyler Phillips can go into the bullpen and
Yeah,
give you some innings too. And suddenly you've bolstered your bullpen by going and getting a frontline ace all-star level starter. And now you can just move guys back into the pen, which is also something I think the Dodgers can do, but they don't even need to do it necessarily with a high-end starter. Look, the Dodgers are the same way. They're like, look, this is what we're willing to give up for it. If the price is too high, we're not going to just go into an arms race and trade more for it. We'll pivot to something else and we'll make other plans. And like I said, at this point, if they can go into the postseason with a healthy Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto, Walker Bueller, Clayton Kershaw, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a formidable starting rotation in the postseason. It can go toe to toe with the Phillies as well.
mhm.
Um, and then you have a guy like Gavin Stone who's been pitching well, who can go to the pen. You have other guys that can come and help you and contribute and go to the pen in that case. If that's the decision that they end up going, which then means what you really need at the deadline is a mid-level starter like a Jack Flaherty who can just get, or Tyler Anderson, like I mentioned, who can just give you 10 starts, go 7-3, and really eat up innings and save your bullpen, rest your
Mhm.
bullpen, rest your starters, and make sure that that's your 1, 2, 3, 4 for the postseason, like I said. Whereas I really think if you're the Phillies, Ranger Suarez has been pitching great. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you can get one front of the line guy, and I think Dombrowski's willing to do it, that's more valuable than a reliever.
Mhm. Yeah, it should be uh, interesting to see how everything falls into place in the coming days. And thanks for jumping on tonight. And I'll definitely have you back on maybe sometime in the next 2 weeks or so.
Sounds
And and hopefully the Phillies will have uh, something to talk about.
I think both the Phillies and Dodgers in 2 weeks from now, Alex, are going to have some new players, some new faces, and they're still going to be neck and neck for that best record in the National League and best record in baseball, I might add. So I'm excited to see that.
And the Phillies traveled to Dodger Stadium
That's right.
after Seattle.
That's right. Okay. So we got to have me on either before or after that series for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.